his brother-in-law is on one of those complete D-bag shows. Welcome to the On the Edge podcast with your host, Scott Groves. Hey, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? It's Scott Groves here with the On the Edge podcast with my newer friend, although we have had a cigar before. We're not smoking today because we both have someplace to go and can't smell like a chimney, but Gershon, a.k.a. Gershon.Vegas. I think Gershon's like the only local Vegas individual I've met who's been here like more than 7 years. I don't know if you were born here. We'll get into that. So Gershon lives here, went to UNLV, is a realtor who's just crushing it. I really love his social media stuff. Don't know anything about you personally. I think you have a wife. I think we talked about that over a cigar last time. Are married. No kids, though?
No kids yet.
Okay, perfect. So, yeah, we just want to hear what you think about the market because, for context, we're filming this summer of 2023. Kind of that COVID boom is over. Still not a lot of property. Just want to talk about like the macro, what you're seeing with buyers, with sellers. What are people thinking? We got a couple other interviews coming up with Los Angeles realtors because that's going crazy again. They're getting 20, 30, 40 offers. I know you're familiar with that market as well. So welcome to the show. And what did I forget in the 30-second Reader's Digest introduction of Gershon.Vegas?
No, that was great. Thanks so much for having me, man. I'm excited to be here. So I was actually born and raised in Vegas. So this is my hometown, which is rare. We're pretty much unicorns, I would say.
I was gonna say, I think I've met like one other dude that's been born and raised in Vegas since I've had this house up here for a couple of years.
Yeah, literally, whenever I meet somebody else that was born in Vegas, it's always like that, that look. You're like, oh my god, you too? Every single time, it's like, yeah, it's so weird.
What brought your family here? Because you're first generation in America, right?
Yeah. So my dad lived in Israel, was born there. My mom's from Morocco, and my dad moved to Cincinnati and then Houston in the 70s and 80s with my two older brothers. He was married before my mom. And then they moved to Vegas when it was just a huge boom in the 80s. Nice. And then my mom, my aunt was living here already from my mom's side. And then they met here in Vegas in the late 80s. So that's the origin story.
What a trip, man. Like it's always funny to me when people move from another country and end up in Vegas.
Yeah. So
just because it's such a tourist spot and there's like so many great places to raise a family and so much like, eco diversity and social diversity. It's like, no, I want to go to Vegas because if you're from outside of Vegas, you don't realize there's like a sprawling metropolis here where people can actually raise a family. Like people just think about the Strip. So why did your dad end up here in Vegas? Was it a work thing? Was it
So my dad was in Houston for, I think like 15 years. And then the economy over there was not doing well. He heard about Vegas. He heard there was a larger Israeli community coming over here.
Interesting.
So the opportunity, he moved over here, and then he started doing. He's in construction as a contractor. So he used to have a door company, and then he had a cabinet company. So he's been inside of that industry for a long time. So. And
what took him out of Israel? I'm always interested in with people's like leave the home country story because I know that you're still very tied to your faith and your ethnicity, and you were mentioning you and your dad have been back a lot of times. What forces somebody to leave their country? Like
definitely.
I love Mexico. I can't imagine ever picking up and being like, you know what? I think I'm going to pick some hodunk little town outside of Cabo. Just go live there. They have better fishing. They have better cabinet making opportunities. Like right. I can't imagine leaving America. I definitely can imagine leaving California or maybe Vegas one day, but leaving America just wouldn't even be on my radar. So have you ever talked to him about what motivated him to bolt?
Definitely. So Israel was created as a state in 1948. So for the first 20-ish years as a country, was really, really poor. And my dad went to school. He became an engineer. He worked in Iran for a little bit. And then more so, his first wife at the time had family in Cincinnati. And it was like, let's go make our bones in America because it's so much easier to make money over there. And maybe we'll come back. So a lot of people do that where they try to get a visa. They go to America, they make the money, and then they either send for family or go back with the money that they've made. So the initial idea was to come raise my two brothers here. And then once he got to America, and so it's all the way of life, it's like, I'm not going to go back. You know what I mean? I love it here. It's great. Not that Israel's bad, but there's so much more room to grow here economically if you don't have money versus, coming here and then going back with the money. So
why is that? Why is America still the land of opportunity where people come to like make their money and make their bones and then a lot of times don't leave? But what is it? Like, I've got a lot of ethnocentric ideas about why America's great, but I love hearing it from people that have actually done it.
Yeah, definitely. So in Israel, it's a much smaller country. It's only 10 million, but back then it was like just a few million people. Obviously, the surrounding states are not friends with Israel, so trade and things like that and business is harder to come by. So unless you, like I said, have money over there and you can kind of make it with it, you're pretty much working for that class that has money. So coming here, obviously, much larger country, much more opportunity to just grow out and if it doesn't work in Houston, you come to Vegas, right? Like it didn't. Right. They originally came to Cincinnati, They moved from Cincinnati to Houston, and then after a while, Houston to Vegas, and settled over here. So you can't really do that in Israel. The cities are like, an hour apart. It's a very small country, the size of Rhode Island.
Yeah.
So it's not. It's just the space, the types of industry you can do, the amount of people, the amount of opportunity. It's 100 times more opportunistic here.
Yeah, there is no moving from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, like completely starting over.
Exactly.
It's kind of the same bucket of people, money, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, bigger now, but yeah, I didn't think about how much their population growth must have been since the 80s when your father left. They've probably doubled or tripled in size.
Right.
So maybe more opportunity there now. And then you said your mom was originally from Morocco?
Yeah, my mom's Moroccan. She used to live in Marrakesh, and then she started working for, I don't know if have you ever heard of Club Med?
Yeah.
So Club Med, they have resorts all over the world.
Yeah.
She did that for like
it's like
20
vacation
years.
in a box.
Yeah, exactly. So she worked at a Club Med for 20 years, 6-month contracts, moving around, saw the whole world, right? And then eventually she decided to come to America because my aunt was living here already. And then she met my dad at some like Jewish mixer thing, obviously.
Obviously, they're like, it's time.
Yeah, exactly. And my aunt's like, come on, like let's make something happen. They hit it off, and that's all she wrote.
Oh, it's okay. So what part of like Fiddler on the Roof is the stereotype correct, right? Was there like a matchmaker there? And he's like, you two, just get together.
Every Jewish person likes to think they're a matchmaker. It's like we're like obsessed with like setting people up that are Jewish with each other. So
really,
yeah, it's a huge thing. It's like if you actually obviously care about the religion and like the way of life.
Yeah.
It's always like, oh, have you met somebody Jewish yet? Like I have this person for you. It's very common.
And is that what Birthright is about? Is it like just getting young men and young women to meet each other to like maybe hook up for marriage? Because explain what Birthright is for people that don't know what it is.
So Birthright is a program for American. I guess it's not teenagers actually. It's American adults. Once you get into college, it's for like 18 to 28. So even after college, you can go. But it's a free trip to Israel. You get to go for 10 days. And in that 10 days, they jam pack your schedule. So, I mean, you're there for 10 days, but you feel like you're there for a month. And it's great. I mean, you're with 50 people. And by the end of the trip, you are best friends, family with these people. And the goal is to show you the best of Israel, show you the good, the bad, everything that you can basically come to appreciate what Israel is, and then also to appreciate your Jewish faith, because you have to be Jewish to go. So one thing that they say is that if you meet your spouse on Birthright, which it's not like an official policy, but like I've heard of this before.
Right.
If you meet your spouse on Birthright and you guys get married, then Birthright will pay for your honeymoon.
It's amazing.
So it's, so I actually knew a couple on my Birthright trip that got married, and I'm not sure if they took them up on that offer. They should have, though.
Right. I found out what Birthright was because just coincidentally, I also did like a 10-day trip to Israel, and we did everything. I had a friend there that was in special forces and gave us a whole tour and everything. And it's Masada, right? Masada, the mountain.
Masada,
yeah. Going to that mountain, and then the next day going to Jerusalem. Oh, I don't know. Was that your phone, Chris? Oh, that's my phone. See, that's my alarm telling me that I'm supposed to take my vitamins. Old man shit, dude. So we went to Masada the mountain. Then the next day we were like in the old city in Jerusalem at the wall, and I saw this bus, like same group of kids, and I was like, I just asked them, I'm like, hey, are you guys like field tripping, or is like? And they're like, no, Birthright, man, same thing. I'm from Cincinnati, I'm from California, and whatever. And they were just there, like understanding their heritage and getting the whole political tour and the sites and everything. It was fascinating. I was like, man, America should do that. We should do some type of like bring the expats abroad to appreciate the country, or maybe people that are living here should appreciate the country. Yeah, but right. I digress. All right, so your mom and dad both end up here. They get set up. They get married. You guys have been here your whole life. What's it like growing up in Vegas, man?
It's really changed a lot. The Vegas I knew as a kid, it's not the same anymore. Obviously, the Strip is the thing that people think about when they come to Vegas. But I remember when I was like 4 or 5 years old, like most of Summerlin was not built.
Right.
You would drive up to let's say like Fort Apache Rampart. There's like nothing out there. So just the growth of the city is crazy. Otherwise, I really think it's the same as any other places, minus the fact that it's super hot and there's no beach. But like the cousins I had in California, the cousins I had in New York, they would come here. They loved it here. I mean, I didn't think it was very much different than what everyone else says. I know some people say you can't raise kids here, but
right.
I don't believe in that at all. I think it's a great city, and I think now especially it's become a multifaceted city. There's so many things here that other cities had that we didn't have before. More culture, more recreation, more outdoor recreation too. I feel like they've really focused on making like walking paths, parks, all that kind of stuff. So I loved growing up here. I had no problem with it. I didn't look at people in other cities and be like, oh, I wish I grew up in California, or I wish I grew up in New York, or whatever else.
Is it weird when you're like a teenage boy and there's like this huge party scene here and there's topless clubs and there's casinos? Like, is that in the back of your mind? Like, I just can't wait to turn 21? Definitely. Or is it kind of like you just grow up with it? It's just part of what it is. There's
like a veil almost over it, and you're like, wow, I can't wait to pierce the veil. Like, see what's on the other side. Go to these clubs. Go to this. Go to that. Once you do it a few times, it's like, yeah, it's cool. I wasn't a huge club person. Like, I went a lot in college because, what else are you gonna do? That's where everyone wanted to go. But there was definitely this like anticipation always, especially. There's a really funny stereotype about Israeli guys. They love to club and party and stuff like that. So
I did not know about the stereotype.
Yeah, they love. I mean, it's just like in Israel, obviously, it's not. I wouldn't say it's dangerous, but there are dangerous parts to Israel, and the life over there, it's more, it's more stressful. Let's say. So they make life a party over there because you never know what's going to happen, and they carry that back to America when they move here. And Israelis love going to the nightclub. So I would always hear from going to synagogue, talking to the Israeli guys, seeing cousins or whatever. Oh, you can't wait to go to this nightclub, Pure, this one, that. So once I finally got to it, I was like, oh, this is fun. But Israelis like clubbing more than I do, for sure.
There you go. So sure, you're breaking the stereotype there. And then I know one of the things that my wife and I were looking about, when we were unhappy with the school system in LA, then we were looking up here. We picked kind of a hybrid homeschool / private school. It's the weirdest program ever. So we can be in LA, we can be up here. It doesn't really matter. The kids can or cannot go to school, depending on what we want. And then there's like a homeschool. What was it like going to school up here? Because I know notoriously the public schools here are not great.
Yeah, so I probably wouldn't be the best person to ask about this because I went to private schools my whole life. My parents knew that the public schools here were very suspect. And more of what I heard from people once I went to UNLV of like how suspect they were, I was happy that I actually did go to private schools. So I went to Jewish private schools until I was in 8th grade, and then I went to a school called the Meadows in Summerlin.
Yeah,
which is it's a very good school. I mean, a really good education. Every kid in my graduating class went to college. Like, that's a big thing that they push there. So from what I've heard secondhand, the public schools are tough, but I really didn't experience it because I was very fortunate enough to be able to go to private schools.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm a pretty much like free market libertarian capitalist absolutionist. And I'm like, oh, not surprising that Las Vegas, of all places, has some of the most amazing public or private schools. It's because the public schools kind of suck. And so the free market kind of steps in and does stuff. And there's
there's a reason. It's because they don't charge.
What was that, Chris?
Sorry.
Man, we're getting all messed up this podcast. We'll be fine. Just more proof that we film it in my garage. So I mean, when we started looking at private school options, there's just like a plethora of options, which is nice, but unfortunate for the kids in public school. And it's kind of like, well, there's no state taxes. The property taxes are really low. You get what you pay for.
Yeah, exactly. The whole allure of coming here is that you can come here and live a great life with a nice house, and your money goes farther. But obviously, it's because there's no taxes. So if they raise the property tax, if they enacted a state tax, less people would come here, and it would impact the draw. But obviously, the caveat to that is your schools suck. So you got to really kind of pick and choose why you're coming here and what you really, really want. Now, if you have the money, then you should definitely go to private school, in my opinion, because the level in which I was at in college versus a lot of kids that I met in public school, not that they were dumb, God forbid, but you could just tell that the basics, the foundation was so much stronger in the schools that I went to versus some of the schools that some of my friends went to.
Yeah. I get this all the time from people. They're like, wait, you bought another house up in Vegas? Da, 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 da. And so we have to spend 181 days a year in Nevada so that there's no income taxes. And they're like, well, they get all worked up that I partially left California. And they're like, well, don't you, don't they still have homeless people and crime? And I'm like, yes, every big city has all those things. Literally. But they're not taking 15% of my money on income tax and property tax and whatnot to have those shitty problems, so I can spend my money where I want. And it's just funny because this keeps coming up, this like tax versus service. I'm like, well, you can live in LA where you pay all the taxes and you get none of the services, and the public schools are still not that great. So I'm a big fan of keeping more of my money and then deciding where I want to spend it. So tell me, you went to UNLV, right?
Yeah, I went to UNLV.
So public college.
I went to about.
What was the experience like there? Because for people that have not been to Vegas before, UNLV is like 3 blocks from the Strip.
Yeah, it's literally right there.
So it's I don't know how I would have ever focused if I turned 21 in college and went to UNLV.
Yeah, so it was very interesting. So I remember my first week at UNLV was overwhelming because my high school was only like 250 kids. So I saw maybe 2,500 people walk into class my first day. Right, to see that many people all together and like just it felt like being a small fish in a big pond. I got used to it. Obviously, I really appreciated it. It helped me grow up a lot. But having the strip in the background and having like the party city atmosphere, it definitely impacts it. I was a part of a fraternity, a Jewish fraternity, and we would obviously do our house parties and things like that. But once you turn 21 or once you get a fake ID, like everybody,
Right.
you're going to the strip, right? There was a time in which everybody that we knew was clubbing, and you would go to the club like 3 times a week, and they had like locals nights, and you would go like Monday night to Marquee, you would go Wednesday night to Surrender at Encore, and then you would go Sunday night to a pool party or whatever, and you would do this for like 1 or 2 years, literally, until you got either tired of it or until the girls would start working at the clubs, the guys would start working at the clubs. But it was very impactful on the social scene. Like everybody you knew that was of age or of age with a fake ID was definitely clubbing. So
yeah, if I was at the club, and I know it gets cheaper when you're local and people hook you up, and it's not like what people are thinking. If you don't live here and you come into town for a weekend and this is your Super Bowl and you want to do all the fancy stuff in a 3-day window, you're going to spend a shit ton of money.
Yeah, literally.
If you're local and you know somebody that works the club and you got a buddy who's a host and you can go on Thursday night instead of Friday night, it's surprisingly cost effective to party in Vegas if you don't gamble and you're local. But there's no way I would have made it through college partying 3 nights a week.
There's some kids that couldn't handle it. There's really some kids that couldn't handle it. And the funny thing about the cost of it, obviously we didn't have the money, but we had the people. So if you could bring, let's say, like 10 girls, you had your like 6 or 7 buddies, and you knew 10 girls that would come with you. They hook you up with free drinks, free entry, free table or whatever it is. So that's how we got around it. We just knew so many people of age that could make it happen.
There's no chance I would have made it through college. I didn't make it through college as it was. I dropped out of Pasadena City College because I'm like, I like working more. But if I would have been in a school that had access to the level of partying and how will we say this, attractive young ladies that you'll find in Vegas,
And the debauchery.
and the debauchery, I would have never made it through. I would have been face down in the gutter. So thank you, Mom and Dad, for not moving here and sending me to UNLV. I would have been in big trouble. Hey, this quick interruption is brought to you by me, Scott Groves, the host of the On the Edge podcast. This podcast is brought to you by me. I'm a loan officer who can help you with a mortgage in all 50 states across the United States. I also coach loan officers. So if you are a home buyer who's looking to get a mortgage, if you're a realtor who's looking to partner with an awesome loan officer, or if you're a loan officer looking for coaching, get in touch with me. It's those sources of revenue that allow us to produce this podcast and get out a new episode to you every week for the last couple of years. So if you're looking for a mortgage, if you're looking for a mortgage lender to partner with, or you're looking for a mortgage coach, I'm your guy. Now back to your regularly scheduled programming. All right. So what does post college look like, and how do you end up in real estate? Because I feel like everybody ends up in real estate. It's because some other job field didn't work out, and they're like, but I can sell all those people in that field, real estate.
Yeah, definitely. Real estate's that career you go to when you have a big network and you're wondering how to parlay that network into something. Yeah. So at the end of college, I started working with my cousin. My cousin basically started we called it like a business consulting firm, but essentially what it was alternative finance. So companies that couldn't get money from banks traditionally because they were in the startup phase, or their financials were weird or whatever else, so they didn't qualify for traditional loans because I think at the time it was 2012. So the market was just recovering from the Great Recession, and
nobody was giving out business loans,
SBA
business line of
tough.
credits.
Yeah, it was super tough to get everything. So a few companies in town basically figured out how to do certain types of alternative finance programs, and one of them, which the name we used to call was unsecured credit financing. It's essentially called credit card stacking. I don't know if you've ever heard about this before.
No.
Okay, so there's a method that somebody figured out, not me, not my cousin, somebody before him, where if somebody has good credit, you can essentially apply to different competing banks at the same time, and you would get, let's say, 5 to 7 different credit cards at a 0% rate. And the idea is that there's a method, if you know how to do it with a bank, where you can pull money off the card without doing a cash advance, because that's the traditional way of doing getting money from a credit card. And you keep the 0% rate for the intro 12 to 18 months. So knowing that you could have access to free capital for a year to a year and a half was really attractive to a lot of franchises, small businesses, anybody that basically needed, let's say, 25 to 100 grand that just couldn't go to a bank to get it.
Yeah, people, and plus we're just coming out of the recession.
Yeah, exactly.
People that made it are trying to rebuild or acquire other assets because they know they're still cheap.
Right. So around that time, it just started exploding. And my cousin was a genius at this. He kind of learned it along the way and then started his own company. He told me about it. He's like, look, I know you're at the end of college. If you want to start learning this and start working out, make a little bit of money. So I was like, let me check it out. I was thinking about going to law school. So I started working for him, and I kind of saw the potential, and we brought some of my other buddies alongside me, and we started growing this company slowly. And then I would say about 3-4 years later, we were crushing it. I think 2015, 2016 were our best years. And we were doing, more than $1 million in revenue. I mean, we had like 4 or 5 reps working for us, 2 assistants. It was really a good setup. And it was all based on that credit card stacking thing where you could, like I said, get 5 or 7 cards, cash them out, and then people would be able to start their businesses and pay them off. Around 2016, it started getting a little bit more dicey because the economy was opening back up a lot more. Lending was becoming a lot easier. You could get money from SBA a lot simpler. So a lot of our lead sources were sending us business, but they were also like, look, this guy got an SBA loan. Asking us, would you take an SBA loan or would you do the credit card stacking? I'm like, of course I would take an SBA loan. Like, you get more money. It's more streamlined or whatever. So slowly but surely, the economy that kind of birthed us was going away.
Yeah.
So
plus now people have equity in their house. They can take an equity line of credit. Instead of having to borrow 15% on 5 credit cards and do this crazy credit card stacking, they're getting 6-7% on the SBA loan, something like that.
Yeah. So what we did served a purpose, and it started kind of fizzling out. So around, I would say 2018, I was like, look, I've been with my girl for 4 years. I'm thinking about getting engaged. Like, I need to figure out something that has uncapped potential that I can, parlay the fact that I've been in Vegas my whole life. I know a lot of people. I knew a lot of people from college, from school, or whatever else. So my dad, who's been in contracting and housing investments or whatever else for the time that he's been here, he's like, you should really think about real estate because when you're in real estate, you'll get into investing in real estate, you'll get into development or whatever else, and it's just a good business to be in. And I was like, I don't want to be a real estate agent.
Right.
I don't want to show houses. I don't want to have to do the flyers and like the stupid pose. You know what I mean?
Right.
There was just so much of it.
One with your cell phone at the desk.
Oh my God, that's the funniest.
This is the worst.
Literally, like the fake phone call.
Yeah.
But after a while, I had 2 buddies who were in real estate. I was talking to them about their position, how things were working, and I could see myself doing it more and more and more. And the first thing was like, let me just get my license. Let me just get my license. And I was thinking about it. So my buddy Ari was getting married. He was getting married in Israel. So I went to Israel, and I don't want to sound like, all spiritual or whatever, but I was in Israel. I'm like, is this right for me? Should I go to real estate? Should I change this up? Is this like the right path for me? And when I was there, I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get the license. I'm going to see if it works for me. So that summer 2019, I got my license, and then I started working in real estate summer 2019 with my brokerage, Allison James Estates and Homes. And the cool thing is that the broker for that brokerage was, his name's Ron Ventura, who's my broker now. His dad and my dad are like best friends, very, very close. They play poker on Sundays together. Nice. So it was an easy thing to get into because I obviously trust Ron, right?
Yeah.
And I heard how shady real estate was for some people. I didn't want to go with somebody that might have taken advantage of me or not really mentored me the right way. And Ron is like one of the best agents I've ever met in my life. I call him like the Winston Churchill of real estate because he knows exactly what to say. He knows exactly how to put it to clients. He knows exactly how to work any deal. He's very, very intelligent. And he's basically been mentoring me. And ever since 2019, I've been working under him and just learning a lot. So that was my first year, and then COVID hit.
Ugh.
And COVID made finance really, really tough because everybody was getting PPP loans and everyone was getting other types of stuff. And just like, credit card companies, banks, alternative finance was basically coming to a standstill because nobody knew what was going to happen with the economy. So I kind of looked and I was like, I need to do this full time. I'm not going to bullshit this. I'm not going to do half this, half that.
Right.
And then early 2020, I said, all right, let's do this. I'm going to go real estate full time. And since then, it's all done.
It's worked out?
It worked out very, very well. Yeah.
Have you seen that video that makes its rounds on Instagram where it's like kind of this pale gal, she's like crying, attractive girl, and she's like, well, I guess I'm just going to become a realtor now. And she's like, this is my life. This is the bedroom. So this is the bathroom. And it's so funny. I see that video. It's been making its rounds for a couple of years where like all of a sudden it will go viral again. And 20 of my friends will send it to me and they'll be like, send this to all your realtors. I'm like, I don't know if they would be offended or not.
It's true for some people, honestly. They feel like they settle into it. I feel like this is what I was meant to do. I mean, I don't want to sound like, like so inspirational about it, but like, the way my mind works, I have a little bit of ADD for sure. Mm-hmm. And I feel like the way that real estate's set up and the way that I have it set up, it's like exactly what I want to do. I want to work with people. I want to try to find deals, because sometimes it's chill and sometimes it's really hot. And I like that it's not, that it varies. It's not always just one way. Yeah, it's something I can see myself doing for the rest of my career for sure.
Well, it has great diversity too, right? Because it's like even if a client is super super hot to trot, you're going to work with them for a few months, maybe, and then they're going to move on to another deal, and then you're going to move on to another deal, and then like I just the dynamics of clients. You and I talked about this a little bit over a cigar. It's like some people are just like, yeah, inheritance, whatever. Just find me a place. I don't care what it is. $900,000. And then some people are like, I'll pay $305, but I ain't paying $315.
Yeah,
and it's like every new deal brings its like own dynamics and stress, but also reward because you're like, oh yeah, I knew how to do the business to business thing to work with the realtor. I know how to do the business to consumer thing to work with the client. And so, other than that credit card stacking, what other stuff do you think you encountered in your life, either working with your dad or meeting people at church or going to UNLV? What do you think like prepped you to work in that B2B and then also that B2C vertical?
So I would say in college, I mean, being a fraternity guy, I wouldn't say that my fraternity was the typical frat guy thing where it was like the pop collars and Sperry shoes or whatever. But the good thing about my fraternity, it was very business oriented, obviously because we were Jewish, all the stereotypes. But they really actually pushed.
Why is that such a stereotype, by the way?
Because we love business. That's all we were allowed to do. Let's say 400 or 500 years ago, we weren't allowed to be blacksmiths. We weren't allowed to be tradesmen or whatever. You were allowed to do lending, and you were allowed to do like entertainment type stuff. That's what was allowed for Jews in Europe and whatever else. So we just became really good at what we were allowed to do, and then the world became capitalist, and that's what we were in.
Yeah. So can you explain this? Because I think sometimes people hear that from either a Jew or especially a non-Jew, and it sounds super offensive. Oh yeah, they were only allowed to do money. People think about money today where it's like sexy to be a banker and being a hedge fund manager. And Michael Douglas made it cool in the movie Wall Street to even be an evil hedge fund manager. But like you said, 500-600 years ago, it was like almost sacrilege to work with money or be a lender. So can you explain historically, as best you know how that stereotype comes about?
Yeah,
because it really was just a type back when it wasn't acceptable for people to work with money.
There are certain religions, or I guess back in the certain religions, certain countries or whatever, where like charging interest was illegal. So if you couldn't charge interest, you had to find another group of people that could, right? So let's make the Jews like the merchant of Venice, Shylock, right? It was
make them the pariahs that have to work in the money field.
Exactly, and you can make those people the devil, but it's like after a while the whole world started basically moving towards, like I said, the capitalist society. So we were basically made to be almost like the scapegoats at the back in the time where you were going to be the money lender. Everyone hated those people. They was the one who were taking advantage of people with interest. And then after a while, it just became something that like we became so good at and became so needed that it obviously didn't have that stereotype anymore. But then it became, oh my God, now that they control the money, they control the world, which is, again, a crazy thing. So
yeah, I've never understood. We spoke about this a little bit over our first meeting of Cigar. I really, truly, in my heart of hearts, don't understand anti-Semitism, because it's like, for the most part, you can't look at somebody and be like, oh, they believe in the Jewish faith, or they're a Jew. Like maybe there's some physical characteristics if you're like very ethnically Jewish, but it's like, I've just never, like, I get it how people single out, a culture or a race, and they have clear details. Like if you're African American, it's pretty easy to pick out of a crowd. I understand how that could be a thing where you could point to a group and make generalizations about them or have stereotypes about them or be prejudiced. But like these evil Jewish people, they run Hollywood, they run the bank. I just don't understand, one, the anti-Semitism, and two, like how it always just like rears its ugly head every, pick a number, 25 years, 50 years. I don't get it because I don't belong to that group. I don't belong to the affected group, and I don't belong to the group that's affecting them. So can you, because it's very real, right? Anti-Semitism is very real,
very much so.
Worldwide, even America. Can you explain what it is, where it comes from, or how you've experienced it? I don't even know what I'm asking. No, I just really don't get it.
I hear what you mean. So in my opinion, the way that it works is, if you look at just the foundation of religion, right, just going back to the history, the Bible and whatever else, they call it the Judeo-Christian kind of arm of it, right? Christians, Muslims, and Jews are all interconnected. If you think about it, you go all the way back up in the Bible, in the Quran, and whatever, the New Testament, obviously Jesus was a Jew, right? And not even going farther back, they say Abraham's kids, Isaac and Ishmael, right? Ishmael is kind of like the father. If you go down that tree, goes down to basically all Muslims. So Ishmael was cast out of Abraham's house, so there's beef right there. And then obviously, there's a huge sentiment that people that feel as if that Jews betrayed Jesus. So that starts right there in the books, right? It's almost like gives you a reason if you're any sort of religious person to almost dislike Jews in that respect. You could read that and be like, oh, those people don't sound good because they cast out Ishmael or they betrayed Jesus, right? You're not going to look at the people individually. You're going to look at the stereotype. And then continuing along history, right, we're a minority group, so it's easy to persecute against minorities, right? Back in the day, you have hate as a group, or there's, bad economics, bad times, or whatever else. You take it out on somebody.
A plague.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, it was because of them or whatever. And then moving along history, right, with that sentiment already in place, you put us in jobs that people dislike, like, oh, I owe that guy money. Obviously, I'm not going to like that person that I owe money.
Right.
And also Jews are very, they like to be in their little enclaves. Like assimilation with Jews back in the day was looked against. That's why we've been around for so long, because we've really stayed in a tight-knit group, right? We do business with each other. We try to marry each other. We have our own language, our own way of doing things. So when you're not assimilating with the other group, it's really easy just to look at those people and be like, they're not for us, they're only for them, right? But Jews have always just been trying to get along. We're not against anybody. We're kind of just for us in a sense,
right.
You know what I mean? So as time went on, like I was saying with the, with money lending, with getting into entertainment, things that we were allowed to do, we just excelled at. So you take those career, you take the history and the Bible, and you put it all together, and we just were looked at just down, right? You impacted our religion too. You impacted us economically too. Like you guys seem like bad apples, and it just pervades inside the society for people that generalize and just think we're bad. So
yeah. And it sounds like the typical thing where humans can't differentiate between correlation and causation.
Yeah, literally.
Like just because there's a bank doesn't mean the bank caused my problems. Like I put myself in debt, and then maybe the economy was suffering, and then maybe I lost my house. It's not because Washington Mutual is a piece of shit and everybody that works there is a piece of shit. It's just like, no, I just kind of a bad set of circumstance, correlation, not causation. Sometimes the banks are the cause of it, but not frequently. Well, thank you for explaining that, because I haven't heard it put like that succinctly, especially going back to the Bible. I guess that makes sense. So do you think people are getting, I don't know why I'm asking this question. Do you think people are getting more racist, prejudice, anti-Semitic, or less since religion is less prevalent? Like I remember reading something just a couple of years ago that Spain, for the longest time, they were the last holdout. Like everybody was still Catholic, everybody still went to church, marriage rate was really high, and just in the last 20 years, that has fallen precipitously. Like church organization, religious affiliation, traditional nuclear family, it's just that was the last holdout of Catholicism. It's off the rails. So as religion becomes less of a focus of the world population, do you think some of this will go away, or do you think it'll just manifest in other ways?
I think it manifests in other ways. Just because people are less religious now, they still kind of associate the group as a whole. I mean, I think anti-Semitic acts are at I don't want to say all-time high, because I'm not sure about that stat, but I know in the last few years, they're up like a significant percentage. And that really happens when there's times of trouble. Like we had a huge pandemic. People are scared in their houses. You know what I mean? You start reading conspiracy theories. You get scared. You start consuming this stuff, and you get your mind in a place that kind of is easy to manipulate. When there's economic downtimes, right? Again, that whole thing of like Jews run the banks. They're obviously causing this. They're only benefiting themselves. How are there 15 million Jews in the world, and yet there's so many successful, high-ranking Jews, right? They look at that. So I think it's just going to manifest itself in a different way. And I think with the proliferation of like new social medias, the way that we consume social media with the really, really fast, TikTok or whatever else.
Right.
I mean, it's all about getting eyes on the screen. I've seen so many videos on TikTok that I'm like, how is this on TikTok right now? It's like a picture of all the different Jewish CEOs with like horns and like just crazy stuff.
For real?
Yeah. Oh my God. All over TikTok. And
this is not in my algorithm.
Yeah. And it's because I follow some Jewish stuff. So the algorithm thinks like, oh, this has Jewish things in it. Let me show it to you sometimes. I see it all the time. It's crazy. And I know that the people that are posting this are not like religious people. They're not like deeply like, oh, I love Jesus. I love Muhammad, this and that. They just look at the Jews as the cause of their problem. So I don't think religion is going to have very much to do with it anymore. It's just this belief that this group of people is the reason you're disadvantaged.
I had a reality check. I could see how this stuff pervades generationally or passes on generationally. I had this moment where my 7-year-old and we were talking about something, and I was mentioning about how like this is a rude way to talk about people, and it's just like these terms are derogatory and whatnot. And he goes, oh, like the Chinese? And I was like, no. And I was trying to think about it. I was like, oh, I do listen to a lot of stuff on podcasts, whatnot, where they're talking about China being the greatest threat to Western democracy. So in my kid's mind, it's like, oh, we don't like the Chinese. Yeah. He has no fucking clue what the Chinese are. He has no concept yet of like race or
it's
creed.
Like the governments against each other. Like no one cares about. Obviously, Chinese people were great. Like
Yeah,
nobody,
exactly. And he doesn't even know what a Chinese person is.
Yeah.
Like we have a couple Asian kids that work out at the gym. He has no clue like that they are different than white or black or Hispanic. But I was like, oh fuck, man. At some point, he's gonna say that in front of the wrong group of people, and he's gonna sound like a raving racist because I have political issues with China, not the Chinese people. And I'm like, oh, it made me think at that moment. I'm like, oh, this is how like really racist stuff
Literally.
can just passed down through generations. And with me, it was truly unintentional. Like I don't have an angry bone in my body towards any Chinese person, just the Chinese government.
Just politics.
Just politics. So nuts. All right. We got sidetracked there. Let's get back to real estate in Vegas. What is going on in the market right now in the real estate market in Vegas? Because I kind of serve 3 markets. A lot of people in Austin, Texas, which that market is actually dropping in price.
Yeah, I've heard that.
LA, which is back to just a shit show where every decent property has 20 offers. And I feel like Vegas is a little bit more normalized. Like you can actually get an offer accepted. You know, there's kind of a correct amount of supply and demand. What are you seeing in like the economics of Vegas real estate?
So Vegas real estate, really interesting because the inventory is again very much down. It was about triple what it was. Let me backtrack. So last summer, when rates
2022.
2022, when rates started going up, right? In the early 2022, it was just crazy on fire. Every house that was worth anything, 10, 20 offers. Even the bad ones were getting, a bunch of offers because again, there was no inventory after, the lack of building over the 2010s. And then the rates rose, and then the inventory slowly rose from summer to winter 2022. So it kind of peaked in summer 2022. I think we had like 12,000 units on the market as the last time I checked. And then slowly...
Which, by the way, comparatively speaking, at the height of COVID, where you couldn't get an offer accepted to save your life, how many properties were on the market, like in Clark County?
Like 4,000 or 5,000, maybe.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So more than double the inventory
exactly.
in 2022 because rates went up, things were moving slowly. Everybody thought the economy was going to crash.
Exactly, literally. So obviously, usually the winter is a slower period. And then it was also the expectation that rates were going to keep rising and whatever else. So from December 2022 until now, the inventory has dropped like a crazy amount. I think it's back to like the 4,000 to 6,000 unit range or whatever else.
Wow.
Partially from some people taking their homes off the market because it was sitting for so long and they weren't getting the right offers, but also because now we're in the summer selling season, kids are out of school, you can move. So because of that lack of inventory, the higher priced amounts, like let's say $550 and above, there's still a hesitance with a lot of those houses because, as you know, as a lender, the monthly payments for those can be, $4,000 or $5,000.
Yeah. So
it's really hard to swing for the average couple. But the amounts that people are on average getting approved for are probably going to be, let's say, $450 and below. So if you're a house in the market right now, let's say if you have a pool, you're going to get 10 offers. If you're below $450, it's bananas. If it's a cupcake house, like ready to go, not too much to change, and you're below $450, again, you're going to get 10, 12 offers. If the house has some things to repair, but it's not like anything crazy, again, a few offers, but we're really just seeing like anything worth anything just flying off the market. Like there's a couple clients I'm working with now that were looking in May, and they were kind of slow about moving towards things, and they wanted to come back. And all the properties that they were looking at, once June hit, just flew off the market. So currently, because of inventory and because now everyone has the expectation that rates are pretty much leveled off, we're seeing a summer selling boom compared to what it was 6 months ago. But compared to a year and a half ago, it's like nothing compared to that.
Yeah. Well, a year and a half ago, I remember talking to a realtor, and they're like, yeah, I haven't sold a house all year that wasn't to somebody who moved from out of state. Sorry, let me reset.
I heard what you're saying,
They had not sold a house to a Las Vegas local the entire year.
Yeah.
It was all people moving from, LA County, Seattle, Portland, all the areas that were still locked down like 2 years later. They're like, screw this. I can be on a Southwest flight and come home to work in 45 minutes. I'll move to Vegas and take the tax advantage. But I think a lot of that has slowed down. All those cities have opened back up again. People forgot why they were mad at the city to begin with.
But we used to say that, we used to make the joke in 2021 that the 2021, excuse me, the 2021 Nevada Realtor of the Year was Gavin Newsom.
It's good. I like that. Yeah, a lot of people moving. I mean, because it is so convenient. Like, there's been a couple times where I had a realtor lunch. We have 4 or 5 realtors going to go. I just drove to LA, had lunch, and drove home, and I was here to put the kids in bed. Like, it's not great. It's like 8 hours of driving in one day, but that's why God created podcasts and audiobooks, and it was great. I just made a bunch of sales calls on the way down there, had a great lunch, got in the car, turned around, drove right back, or, we'll stay in our place down there if we can go down for a week or so. But it is really convenient. if you're an LA transplant to be in Vegas. Like there's
100%.
there's no family that won't come visit you because it's Vegas. You can be home really quick. Do you get hit up like all the time by friends that are like, hey, can I come stay with you because I want to come to Vegas?
I mean, it's definitely sometimes a lot of them love to stay on the Strip. I mean, everyone that comes,
that's true.
It's really, really, but a lot of times we get people that come that want to save the money and they'll stay with us. But I like it when they stay on the Strip because I get to experience that. I don't just go to the Strip randomly just to go party or whatever. But when they come here, it's always an excuse to go to the pool, to go to whatever else. I love it.
Yeah. When you're local, at what age did you give up on the Strip? Because I feel like everybody I know that's lived here for a while, they're like, yeah, I avoid the Strip like the plague.
I feel like once I turned like 26, 27, I was just like, I don't want to deal with it anymore. Like driving, parking, walking, like dealing with it all. So like I said, unless we have family and we try not to go unless there's like a specific event, like a sporting event or whatever else.
Yeah. Talk about, we're filming this. What's the date today, Chris? June something? June. I don't even know what it is. You can say it out loud. June 16th. I think I just saw the news that the city government signed the documents to bring the Oakland A's here to town. I know a couple years ago you got the Raiders. A few years before that, you got the Golden Knights, who just won a World Cup. Yeah. So how much has that changed the dynamic of the town of like now there's something to root for other than the UNLV college basketball team?
Yeah. So first of all, UNLV hasn't been good in like 10 years. So it's been rough on that side. But having the sports team has been amazing. Before that, there was a sentiment in my opinion that there was like no culture to Vegas. It was just like, such a transient town. You would come here to make money. You would come here because it's cheap. But like the sports teams have really created this amazing culture. Vegas, when you come here to survive and thrive. And the Knights, the fact that they were able to win, go to the Stanley Cup the first year, I'll never forget watching that in the bar and just like the camaraderie with everybody. And then obviously now being able to experience them winning. And we're actually going to go to the parade on Saturday. It's going to be incredible. I'm so excited to see it because I never thought in my whole entire life I'd ever be able to see a championship parade in Las Vegas. Like, right. Much less hockey. Like this is the least likely place to have ice. It's 110 degrees outside. And we're celebrating a hockey championship. So the sports teams have just made it so there's more of a tighter knit culture. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't want to say I'm not a Raiders fan, but I feel like it's harder to become a fan of a team that moved versus an expansion team. Yeah, agree. Like, I've always been a Houston Texans fan because my dad lived in Houston, so I was a Rockets fan, and then I became a Texans fan. But having that, being able to see your team come into town or whatever, I think it's just made the culture so much more tight-knit and made it so we really feel now that Vegas is like a major city. I feel like there was this thing before it was just, you come here, it's the Strip, it's fun, but we weren't like a major city. Now we're like 2.5 million people with like 3 professional sports franchises. We are officially like on the map. Yeah, like a real big boy city, not like a B- tourist attraction. We're not just like an arm of LA, you know what I mean? Right. Like we're literally our own metropolitan area that's like, to be reckoned with. Well, I remember reading about this because I've been coming up here forever because my uncle lives up here. When Zappos announced that they were building their corporate center here, that had to be 15 years ago now or something like that. Yeah. Chris, you should look this up. Whenever Zappos broke ground on their major corporate office here, I remember being like, oh, that's probably what Vegas needs, like a couple forward-thinking tech companies, something. And now, what year is that? What are you holding up?
2013.
2013. Okay, so 10 years ago. 10 years ago. I remember when that happened, thinking it was a big deal. And now if you drive out towards the west side of town, it's like major business after, what's that one, Switch, like big tech company out there. Like there's actually industry here now other than the casinos. Yeah, the Google, I forgot what it is. I think it's over here in Green Valley. Huge Google data center. A huge Google data center. It's honestly been incredible. I had a buddy in college that was working at Zappos, and he used to take us to all the Zappos events with them. They were so much fun. They would literally just like rent out these like huge hangars, and they would have like this like open bar parties with like with artists and art displays and so much other fun stuff. But when that came, you felt it in the early 2010s that sort of things happening, and it just started parlaying. And obviously now, like I said, we really feel like a big boy city with all the industry and with all the sports. Yeah. I know. How do I put this politely? I know a bunch of people that are building up. What's that like country club inside of the country club? Like it's the gated community within the gated community within the gated community on the west side where like Mark Wahlberg is building a house. Is it the Ridges? Yeah. So like way up there in the super rich person section, I saw a list of people that are relocating from California to there, and they're like, oh, we want to raise our family in the desert. They just got to come up with some politically expedient excuse, and it's like, no, you're leaving California because you don't want to pay 13% of your hard-earned money on taxes for a state where like you don't use any of the services. I know Mark Wahlberg's opening a studio up here. I won't use their name. Yeah. Sony, and then I know a couple mortgage, I won't use their name, but a couple mortgage CEOs that have moved up here that want to move operation centers up here. And it's like, it's just so much cheaper to do business, and there's land and people, you know, making a decent income and afford a nice house. Like, it makes so much more sense to me than living on the west side of LA and trying to find a $2 million starter home.
Literally, yeah. It's funny that you said the Ridges. We call it the Riches.
The Riches.
it's so nice over there. I did this externship in college where you would basically go spend a day or two with like random people that the business college would set you up with. And I was set up with this business manager guy, and you know, I met up with him. I was like, how you doing? What's going on? What are we doing today? He's like, we're going to go to the Ridges. One of the guys that I'm managing, he's a huge poker player, and he's building a $10 million house over there. So I spent the day with him. This is so cool. I spend the day with him. I'm at this like 15,000 square foot house while they're building it, right? And I sit in on a meeting, and this whole meeting for an hour, and I'm just like, this is what rich people deal with. It's just so funny. It was a debate whether or not he was going to get a 120-inch theater screen or a 130-inch theater screen. And like they're discussing the pros and the cons, and you could just see him like just like dead in there. He's like, I don't care, just like choose one of it. But they had this whole presentation set up. It's like this super expensive thing. And I started talking to this guy, and this poker player, I was like, how do you know this guy? What's his deal? Like, why is he famous? Like, what did he win? He's like, that dude is Kevin Spacey in the movie 21. That's who the character is based upon. And I was like, he ran that MIT team. He's like, yeah, that guy literally ran the MIT card counting team. And this guy was like building a huge house in the Ridges. And then he's like, look, I got to go, but I have another friend here that I want you to meet. I'm going to drop you off at his house and I'll come pick you up later. So I'm like, where's this guy's house? He like points, and I look at the mountain. There's like a house on the mountain over there. He like drives me up this winding road. And this guy was like the first guy to bring 5 guys from like the East Coast to the West Coast, I guess. And he told me the way he did it was literally by doing the credit card thing, which was so funny. But
amazing.
He had this huge house, and he like takes me into this like garage he has, and the garage is like 50 feet high, like 60 feet across. The whole thing comes up, and we just spent the whole day together. And I always said I wanted to live in the Ridges after that. So one day, God willing,
you'll be there.
I'll be able to do it.
So I always am interested in this in real estate, right? It feels like there's this progression when you're a new realtor. You'll work with anybody, the first time buyer, down payment assist, driving across town to sell a $300,000 house. And then a couple years later, those people upgrade, and and then, you know, one day you either cap out at a certain place, or eventually you're like, all right, it's time to put on the big boy pants and bite the bullet on the country club membership. And like, I'm going to go to try to sell $1 million houses. Or if it's in LA, it's multi-million-dollar houses. But that's such a like insulated community where you have to know the right people from church, and you got to belong to the right country club. And again, I won't use his name, but a friend of mine is a realtor, very successful. His brother-in-law is on one of those complete D-bag shows, one of the real estate ones, you know, Selling Sunset or $1 million something or whatever. And he's like, yeah, my brother-in-law, before he sells a single house and he wakes up, you know, January 1st, he's got $250,000, $350,000 of overhead before he sells a single house, because he's got to belong to these 2 country clubs, and he's got to go to this, and he's got to have this Bentley just to fit in with the crowd, and he's got to live in this neighborhood. Like, before he sells a house, he's in the whole $500,000 or something. And so I'm like, that's what it takes to sell big boy real estate. So is that in your mindset any day where it's like, okay, when I get to this age, I got to join this country club, or I got to start hanging out with these wealthy people because I'm going to sell houses in the Ridges so I can be one of the riches?
My goal is to not have to basically like keep up with the Joneses as a realtor. Yeah. Because I do know a few agents that like their overhead is just crazy. I mean, you're almost like stuck in this thing where the access to the high net worth individuals is like making it so you're not a high net worth individual.
Yeah, so that's a really good point.
It's, you know, it's very, very tough. And like, that's the easiest way to do it though, is to literally buy access to those people. So my goal, I guess, is to because I've been here for so long, right? I have that expertise. I also know, you know, a lot of successful people my age that I hope are going to become more and more and more successful, that will become those people, right? Right. And just by virtue of being here so long and knowing them from a younger age, you know, that was the goal. I didn't want to do real estate at like 40 years old and have to break in. I wanted to do it at like, you know, 27. And then by the time all my friends were 35 and 40 and, you know, God willing, they're, you know, millionaires or whatever it is, you know, I would have access to them and their friends already. So yeah, I definitely respect the people that put out all that capital to gain that access, but I really want to do it organically. I want to do it through YouTube. I want to do it through just keeping up these friendships and hopefully just get there naturally.
Yeah. And I got to think that old school agent who like just tries to play golf with everybody, he's got to be suffering, right? Like, cause you can get just as much exposure on a YouTube short or reel or tube or whatever the hell they're calling them.
Dude, social media has changed everything. I mean,
yeah, talk about that.
Social media has literally changed everything. Like when I first started using social media back in the day, I didn't really understand like where this was going. I thought it was more so just like, you know, meet girls, show what's going on. Yeah, it's very, very basic. I didn't really see the business aspect of it. And I wish I did earlier because, you know, when I first started in real estate, it was more so just, you know, finding deals through friends, talking or whatever. I didn't really think of social media as being a lead magnet. And then I started seeing how other people were doing it. I didn't want to come across as cheesy.
Right.
I didn't want to come across as thirsty. And so I was like, I just need to give a lot of value. I need to inform people about what's going on. I need to make it snappy, make it funny, make it interesting. Because the whole point of doing anything on social media and anything with marketing, in my opinion, it's not about that specific video getting you clients. It's about you always just being in front of the people. And eventually, when they're ready to go, they're like, I've watched 15 of those guys' videos in the last 6 months. Like he's consistently giving me value. So he definitely knows what he's talking about. So I'm going to choose, let's say I'm considering 3 different realtors. I'm going to choose him out of those, you know, 3 I'm considering because he's already given me so much value without asking for anything in return. And then the other side of that is obviously I view social media videos and all that. These are assets. And these assets are the gift that keeps on giving. You make a video, a 10-minute video about new builds in Vegas, let's say. It's a video I'm working on right now, actually. And, you know, somebody can watch that and all of a sudden now they're like, I know exactly what I want to do with new builds. And you can have 1 million people watch that video and you don't have to talk to any of those people. And you're going to get, it's a constant lead magnet. And that was so attractive to me to literally build a passive lead magnet through real estate. So that's been my focus lately. I definitely have thought about like doing I bought a pair of golf clubs during the pandemic. I was like, I got to start doing this stuff. I got to start going out there. It's just not me though. It wouldn't be genuine.
Right.
You know, my genuine aspect is I love to educate. I love to inform. I love to make people laugh. So that's my goal with the social media thing. And that's really made it so I feel like it's leveled the playing field that if you can't afford to buy access into those high net worth individuals, those people are watching YouTube.
Right.
Those people are on Instagram. You know, I get their access. I get their attention for free. And you have to pay, you know, $10,000 at a country club to get it. So.
Right, right. You know what's crazy is I think you should make videos about golfing, but just your journey of how much that sport sucks and how frustrating it is, right? Like if instead of being like the super suave golfer, you're just out there cussing at the course, screaming at your ball and be like, I'm your favorite realtor. Fuck this 3-wood or whatever. Like I can't. I've tried golfing so many times. I even took like a week of golfing lessons, and even the golf instructor was like,
Not for you, bro.
This is not for you. Take up a racket sport. You have that kind of natural swing. You're never going to be a good golfer.
That's why I love pickleball now, because I feel like pickleball is like it's not super hard.
Pickleball is like the new CrossFit. Everybody's talking about pickleball.
Everybody does.
I mean, I know what it is. It's like ping pong, right?
It's ping pong tennis.
Ping pong tennis.
Yeah, so it's a larger court, obviously, right? But the idea
larger than tennis?
No, it's larger obviously than ping pong. It's
okay.
Small, but I'm saying like when you play it, like you feel like the ball itself, it's not like a bouncy ball, but it has a little bit of a bounce to it. And then the rackets are a little bit smaller, and the course itself, like you play 2-on-2, and the rules are a little bit different. It feels like you're playing ping pong with the rules because you have to let it bounce. There's certain places you can't go or whatever else. But I feel like because tennis is like so much harder, and then ping pong is like so like just basic or whatever, it's that happy medium.
Yeah,
people feel like they can actually like become good at it after practicing, whereas you could play golf for 6 months and not become better because it really is
6 years. You could play golf and not feel like you know what the hell you're doing.
Exactly. With pickleball, I feel like you play a few weeks, you're gonna get to a level where you're not like amazing, but you're not like that guy sucks, you know?
Yeah, you can hold your own.
Exactly.
So this is funny. Shout out to my buddy Josh Painter. This is the craziest story. My buddy Josh started playing pickleball like a year ago. He loves it. And he has a house and a real estate firm in San Diego, but also in Temecula. Temecula is just like Vegas. You know, it's 100-something degrees during the summer. He and his partner just signed the lease for an indoor pickleball facility.
That's cool.
They're going to have like 5 courts. They're going to have like a bar and a juice bar and sell equipment. And it's like they're all in on pickleball. And I'm like, maybe we'll have them on and we'll talk some of the numbers. I won't divulge what the lease is going to be, but I'm like, dude, are you sure you're gonna make money? Like what? And he's like, dude, there is an unquenchable thirst for pickleball. And even if they build a court down the street, 18 courts outside, who wants to be outside when it's 101 degrees? They'll come to the air conditioned spot and play and have a juice and buy, overpriced smoothies or something.
It's such a smart idea because the courts here, I mean, once you get to like this time, you can only play until like 12 or 11. It's like ridiculous to be outside. So there's obviously a long wait at the good courts. Like, there's courts on Charleston and 215 that get really, really busy in the mornings. So you gotta, I think like that, would kill it.
Chris, you need to start looking for some commercial warehousing space.
Yeah.
What does it cost in Vegas for a commercial warehouse space? Gershon and I are going to start a pickleball indoor league. But it's crazy because I was busting his balls. I'm like, this is the dumbest idea I've ever heard. So now he's texting me all the wins. He's like, we just had somebody want to pay us $5,000 to host a private tournament because they just want to bring in like a bunch of corporate people and like have a pickleball tournament, but they need the place all day. And I'm like, $5,000 for like wiffle ball? He's like, it's pickleball, dude.
There's
it's
a professional. There's like a professional pickleball league.
Shut
now.
up.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure like some celebrities are the ones who are the commissioner or bought it. But there's literally a professional pickleball league now.
I don't know why this surprises me because there's a professional cornhole league.
Yeah.
But all this stuff just seems funny. Like Chris's older brother, Rob, who's a lifetime friend of mine, he's like on like a cornhole team and they have jerseys and they're trying to like work their way into like an ESPN rotation. I'm like, dude, you're throwing beanbags. This is like a bar game.
Bro sport.
Super bro sport. And by the way, shout out to my buddy Rob. He is the ultimate bro. He's a fireman. He has the lifted truck, the RV, the sand rail. He fits all of the stereotypes. So what do you think the future looks like for Vegas? I mean, obviously they've been a massive urban sprawl. You mentioned Summerlin, the other side of Henderson. You know, now there's houses almost all the way to Boulder City, which was just dead space even a couple of years ago.
It's crazy what's been happening.
Are they gonna continue with the urban sprawl? Like, is there space in this valley, or eventually will it be like LA where they're out of space and now property values just start to rise astronomically?
So in Nevada, like 85% of the land is owned by the BLM or run by the BLM.
Really?
Yeah, it's crazy here. So they're releasing more and more every single however often, and there's new developments. Like there's gonna have one by Kyle Canyon. Do you know where that is?
No.
All right, so Sky Canyon is Northwest Vegas next to Centennial.
Okay.
And if you keep going up that direction, you go towards Mount Charleston, and there's like an area called Kyle Canyon. There's literally new developments now past Sky Canyon all the way to Kyle Canyon. And then they're also building out Cadence, which is in Henderson. And in my opinion, they're going to keep on going even more south, like even towards like where the I-15 is. There's a lot of land over there. I feel like they're going to keep on just building out because we have a lot of, on the edges of town. But they're building an incredible amount of homes finally. Right before it was tough for, I guess, from 2010 until I would say 2017. They weren't building that much. Yeah. But in my opinion, what's going to happen is because of the lack of inventory versus how many people are coming here, once rates go down, it's going to continue to be just the bananas market. I think that by next year we're going to see home prices continue to rise and be an even higher clip than they were last year. I think the highest median price we got to was like $481 or something like that for single family homes. I think we're going to get to the $500,000 range eventually. And that's, again, only if we can somehow figure out the supply situation. Like, there's so many people moving here because of what you said, because of the cost of California, and now even the cost of Phoenix. Phoenix has become like a top 10 metropolitan city in living expense since the pandemic. I think they were hit the hardest with inflation. So we have a lot of areas that are feeding our city. And if we can, continue to build the infrastructure, if we can continue to build, the houses at the right pace or whatever else, I think it's going to continue to grow. I think we'll make it to, be a city of 3-4 million people eventually, and that home prices will continue to rise. Yeah.
And supporting that, I was just at a conference this last week. Shout out to Barry Habib, a friend of mine who's like one of the foremost experts in predicting markets and kind of real estate and mortgage finance economics. And he gave an amazing hour-and-a-half presentation. Like, I could nerd out over this stuff for days, all about like demographic trends and new household formations and housing starts. And it's like America basically needs 10 million new housing units a year just to keep up with population growth. Right. And we're building like 3.
No, literally.
And so there's simply not enough housing in America for the number of people that want to buy. And so I just, he was basically saying, I get it. It's counterintuitive that rates have gone up and property values have not gone down, but it's just a supply and demand thing. Like, there's just not enough houses for the people that are willing to buy. Now, at some point, the levy breaks and affordability becomes a problem, but there's not enough units of housing for family members and new household formations that want to buy a house. It's bonkers.
Yeah. I think I saw something that was like in the decades preceding the Great Recession in 2008, they were building like 15 to 20 million homes a decade for a little bit of time. And then past the Great Recession with all the extra inventory, I think they only built around like 5 million homes from like 2008 to 2018.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So, I mean, you just think about that. And with one fell swoop, all the millennials are becoming of age. Yep. And they can't find any houses. The baby boomers own, a ridiculous amount of homes. So it's going to be really interesting what happens. But like you said, I mean, that one decade of pausing really caused this huge problem that we're experiencing now, and we're going to continue experiencing, in my opinion, for a couple more years until all the home builders can keep on building and actually quench that thirst.
Yeah. I saw that in mortgage and real estate as well. It's like we kind of had a lost generation of people getting into the business, which is good for you and I, not as much competition. Literally. But like the last thing you were going to do between about 2008 and 2015 is become a loan officer. Like if you weren't in it, or if you weren't going to work for your mom or dad or falling into it on accident, nobody was like going to be a loan officer in 2008. It was the worst job on the planet. Literally. And so it's kind of funny now that I'm 23 years into my career, which sounds crazy when I say it out loud. I'm like, oh yeah, there's a lot of new guys that are like under 5 years that got in, they made some money in the refinance boom. And there's a lot of old timers, 45 and plus, that have been doing this for 20 years. But you don't see a lot of successful or even present 32, 35-year-old loan officers, because we lost that whole generation after 2008. Nobody was getting into the business.
I feel like I meet a lot of agents that are like, either I've been in this 20 plus years, or the other side is like, I've been in this like 4 or 5 years. And less. You know what I mean? It's really true that there was like that time period where there was no reason to have real estate as your main job. And maybe you'd hold a license, but we're talking about people that are actively doing, more than, let's say, 2 deals a year.
Right.
So, but the funny thing is that I've started seeing a lot of people that I don't want to say I knew, but people that I worked with or whatever that have dropped out. I've even gotten referrals from people that I worked with in 2021 that were like, look, I can't support my family. I don't have the right network.
Right.
You could pick deals off of trees in 2021 if you knew enough people. So
right.
Obviously I'm in it to win it, so I'm staying. And I've said this before. I think it's good that we're going through this because it's obviously been very oversaturated.
Yeah.
The problem is that with the conditions that the pandemic gave us, this became like, and even being a loan officer, right?
Free money.
You could do it from home. You don't have to go into an office. So the fact that work from home was so prevalent in the pandemic, it just oversaturated our markets, and it killed deal flow for certain people. But now, obviously, I think there was like 60,000 agents that dropped off in the last year already.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm looking forward to that as well. It's like I'm always of the it's kind of a jerk thing to say as a mortgage coach, but whatever, a loan officer coach, I'm like, make it harder. Just like make it harder so that all the losers get out, because then the market share that's left over, it'll just get split. Like the pie will get split amongst the more professional people. And it's like, to me, that's never a bad thing.
We don't have to defend our jobs for the shitty people. I honestly hate doing that. There's such a bad stigma for real estate agents.
Totally.
And I honestly get it, because I know some people that should never have become agents, but again, if you know, let's say 1, 2, or 3 people that are going to buy or sell a house in the coming year, that's like such a motivator, because you can make that, $20,000, $30,000. Why wouldn't you spend the $500 to $1,000 just to get the license, hang your license, and then make that money?
Yeah.
Right. And then all of a sudden there's that social pressure. I'm a real estate agent. Why wouldn't you use me? We're friends, right?
Right.
This is like such a big decision for people. It's a huge thing that can impact your life. You want the best person with you.
Yeah.
You want the best person getting you your loan, making sure you're getting the right pricing. They're not overcharging you with with their commission or whatever else. So you probably have people that come to you. They're like, I don't trust loan officers because I saw the pricing afterwards. Like, I totally fucked me. Yeah. I could have gotten this. I could have gotten that. You know what I mean? So I hate that we have to defend our profession so much, because I know so many good agents and so many good loan officers.
Yeah.
And I wish that the people that criticized knew those specific people, because they're worth their weight in gold.
Yeah, the consumer blows me away. Like, I have a couple of friends who, no exaggeration, if they're buying a stick of deodorant on Amazon, they will read 17 reviews about what's the best organic. Am I spending $7.77 an ounce, or should I subscribe to the monthly delivery to spend, to save 30 cents? And then I'm like, oh, so where'd you find your realtor? Oh, I don't know. It was referred by a friend, or it's my cousin Vinny. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute.
Don't check it out.
You spent all day Saturday researching a $200 blender, and on the biggest like financial decision you're ever going to make, you found some guy on the web, or like, somebody on Zillow like cold called you after you filled out a form. Are you crazy?
Yeah.
And it drives me bonkers.
And the reason is because there's no money exchanged until a sale is done. So it's like, oh, if I get to work with this person for free until I make a decision, like, why would I complain about, the level of service? But it's almost like, if you don't realize that everything that happens up until the sale is so important to making sure that sale is actually a good value and you're not overpaying,
right? You
would definitely go back and be like, okay, let me see who actually has good reviews. Let me see what those reviews are saying. Does this person, go out of their way? Are they available? Are they conscientious? Are they relentless? Like, when people ask me what my difference is as being an agent, I say 2 things. I say, I'm relentless. If you give me a task and you give me a goal, I'm going to keep on pushing until we get it. And then I'm also conscientious, right? I'm very self-aware about what the client's needs. I'm not going to be overly pushy. I don't look at a sale as they came to me. I need to make this deal happen in the next few months because I need to pay for this or pay for that. Right. Average lead to close time is more than a year for the business. And if you treat it like a career, you know what I mean? So what if somebody doesn't buy now, they'll buy later, or even if they don't buy, they have people that they know that will refer you to them. Everybody, you know what I mean, is a connection to another person. And if you approach it like that and you put the process over the profits, it's going to be a very good career from you. But so many people just treat it as profits over process. So they look for, hey, where's that next deal? Where's that next hit coming from? And that's what creates the stigma of, you know, having a bad agent or a bad loan officer, let's say.
That's awesome, man. I like that. I like that quote, process over profit, because it's true. Like when you know you have a good way to stay in touch with people, you're going to stay in front of them, you're going to add value. You're like, dude, I'm going to be doing this shit for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Like we'll get there eventually. Just let me know. I do want to ask one question before we close it up. You mentioned, you know, the YouTube, the videos, the kind of gift that keeps on giving. A ton of people can see that. I always wonder, because loan officers are notorious about this, of like, oh yeah, I was busy all day doing marketing because they were playing on Facebook, or, you know, they were hiding behind their web camera. And I'm like, yeah, that's brand awareness is good, like getting your name out there. But at some point you have to ask for the deal. You have to convert it to a lead. Like you got to put a butt in the seat, right? You got to make the phone 100%. Ring. So how are you working on that? Is it a funnel? Is it a call to action? Is it a follow-up or retargeting strategy? How are you doing? Like, all right, I'm putting the videos out there for brand awareness. I want the person to feel comfortable with me so that by the time they talk to me, they pick me over the 3 other realtors that might be able to sell their house. But how do you get them to pick you, or how do you get them to pick up the phone and interact with you? Like, what's the hook, or where does it go from brand awareness to like lead capture, I guess?
So the way that I look at it is I have a very big sphere of influence. So, and the reason is because I've been here for so long, just naturally you meet people, family, friends, you know, whatever else. So the way I look at social media is when I produce videos, either short form, long form, or whatever, my main target market is the people that I'm already in contact with. And it's always just making sure that they know that I'm in real estate, that I'm actively doing it. Because there's so many times where you're like, oh yeah, I bought a house. I totally forgot you were in real estate. Yeah. You know, those are the best deals. Like, yes, to make a video go viral and get a random lead is amazing, because obviously you don't spend money for it. It's great. But the main thing, if you want to be successful and have that base, you know, few $100,000s that you're making a year, right, aside from, you know, going viral and starting to make a crazy amount of money from all the leads coming in, you got to be in front of your sphere of influence constantly, whether it's the mailers, the magazines, the videos, and whatever else. So my main focus is really just making sure that my specific sphere sees me constantly. And then the dessert, the side for me, is getting those, you know, additional people that from the natural organic reach of the social media that see me and reach out to me for whatever else. So what I do is I do the videos, and I also try to make them like, I'll give you an example. At the end of this month, June 30th, there's going to be a deadline for when you can basically change your property tax increase rate in Clark County. So the way that Clark County does it, like other places, if you buy and sell a place, they send you a card and they ask, is this place going to be your primary residence? But most people either don't answer the card, they don't get it, whatever, something happens and they don't send it back. Yeah. So Clark County automatically assumes that this is an investment property, and then they're going to increase your property tax by 8%. So there's a very simple way to change this, right? So I created a video on it. So what I do is I basically take that video and I send a scanned QR code of that video along with the thumbnail in a letter to all my sphere and whatever else. And I say, hey, this is happening. You might be being overcharged for property tax. Watch one of my videos. In 5 minutes, you can save yourself, you know, hundreds of dollars a year. So I try to basically meld the different types of reach, whether it's, you know, the mailers, the magazines, the videos, all together. So I'm hitting everybody from different types, but also making it so these things are actually useful to them. It's not just pick me videos, right? It's like, this is how you're going to save money.
Like, here I am standing in front of my Ferrari.
Yeah, exactly.
Pick me.
I hate doing stuff like that. I want the content that I make, the purpose of it is for you to watch it and be like, wow, that really helped me. And this guy helped me without him asking of anything from me. So that's who I want to work with.
I love that.
That's my main focus, really.
I love it. I'm going to read a message. This will inspire you to do more videos. This is so funny. Just got this on Instagram today. This guy, Luis, who I've done a ton of jiu-jitsu with. We've had just a bunch of conversation. He's like, what's up, Scott? I had no idea you were a loan officer. I'd love to talk your ear off. I'm getting ready to make a new purchase here this summer and would love some of your guidance. Crazy that the timing was perfect. I just saw one of your reels talking about a VA loan. I'm not a veteran, but I'm guessing you can still help me with a mortage. And it's like, this is a guy who I see every morning at 6 a.m. I have a sticker on my water bottle that says, I'm a mortgage loan officer, ask me questions.
You got to remind people.
It comes up once in a while. But yeah, had he not seen my reel, he would be in the gym talking about like, oh yeah, I just bought a house. I'd be like, oh man, you should have used me for a loan. He'd be like, you do loans? I thought you were just some chubby white guy that does jiu-jitsu. It's like, no, I have a real job. That's why I come at 6 a.m. But just that little top of mind to stay in front of our sphere. It's almost like, it's like social media is the new newsletter. I remember being a kid, my dad, he worked in the automotive industry. He would get newsletters from tool shops all the time because he bought, off some Mack truck or something. So they'd sign him up for the newsletter, stay in front of him. And every once in a while, he'd be like, oh yeah, I got to call him. I got to buy this $200 wrench socket, something or other. It's like social media is like the new newsletter. It's like the new mailer.
I heard something when I first started real estate that I don't know if it's Keller Williams who says this, but it's like you have to have a certain number of touches every single year with the client to stay top of mind.
Yep.
I don't know if it's like 30, 35 touches. And when I first started, I was like, how am I going to stay in touch with somebody 35 times?
Right.
Like not be annoying, especially with, and the reason I say that is because back in the day, there were so many things, there's so many less things that were taking our attention, right? Now you have a million notifications, your TV's on, this is on, that's on. People start to get annoyed of all these random emails, phone calls, texts. So I was like, how am I going to stay in touch 35 times? And I was like, wait a second. People are on their phones on social media all day long.
All day.
If I do 3 videos a week or 2 videos a week, 100 videos a year, they're going to see 30 of those. That's going to be an easy way. And people react to your videos. They comment, they like, you share it in your story. It's the modern way of doing those 35 touches without being annoying.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because it's they're selecting to allow that marketing into their life. You're not intruding on them.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that. All right, there's 2 questions I always love to close up with. We're actually a few months ahead on our filming schedule, so this will probably come out towards the end of summer 2023. Nice. So going into the last part of 2023, what are you most looking forward to? What are you most excited about? And then I always ask this question because I'm a movie junkie and I feel like you can learn a lot about somebody. What's your favorite movie and why? Okay. So what are you looking forward to going into the end of the year, and then favorite movie and why?
All right, end of the year, I'm looking forward to lower rates. I hate the market as currently constructed. It's super. It's tough for the people that are buying and selling because it's such a stranglehold on it. And I know obviously that prices will rise, and that's tough for some. But like to have more volume in the market is better for everybody. People can't leave their houses right now that have low rates because there's nothing to go into, and they can't afford to move out. So I'm very excited for the government to finally lower rates because finally the market can come to more of an equilibrium. And then my favorite movie, and all my friends know this about me, is Gangs of New York.
Such a great movie.
I love that movie. I remember I saw it when I was
Butcher, man.
Dude, Bill the Butcher. DDL is one of my favorite actors. He's incredible. I love method actors. Just the fact that they can just become so consumed by this role. And I remember watching, I saw it when I was 12 years old, which the gravitas of the movie should not have impacted me as much as it did, but I saw it at 12. And I left that movie. I was like, dude, America's fucking crazy, man. Like, did this kind of stuff really happen back in back in the day? Like the way they teach you history or whatever else. And I did a lot of research about it. And obviously there's a lot of embellishments or whatever, but a lot of it is kind of based on how like the inner cities with like political machines and crazy gangs and whatever worked. And I've seen it maybe 50 times in my life. It's one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah. Daniel Day-Lewis, he is like my top 5 movies kind of ruminate back and forth, but definitely in the top 5. Sometimes number 1 is Last of the Mohicans. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. And Daniel Day-Lewis, he's just a badass at everything he does. Like from there to, what was the one? I Drink Your Milkshake. Oh my God, where he's like the oil baron.
Oh, There Will Be Blood.
There Will Be Blood. Yeah, great that movie, you're just like, you're watching that and you're like, where's the happy ending? It's like, oh, nope, this is just how it was to be a robber baron in the oil tycoon days. And I can't think of a bad movie he's been in. The one where he plays the IRA dissident. Anyway, I could go on and on about Daniel Day-Lewis. My Left Foot. Such a great actor. Yeah. That guy needs to do more stuff. Like I guess there's just not
selective.
enough.
I was like reading about his life. He likes to keep a very private life, and he's very, very, very. He does movies every like 5 to 7 years randomly.
Yeah, and they're always perfect.
Always killers.
Bastard. Yeah. All right. Well, Daniel Day-Lewis, if somehow you ever stumble upon my podcast, we would love to have you on, and I would like you to do more movies. Yeah. Hey, Gershon, thanks for being on, man. I appreciate it. Always a fun conversation about the market. And we got a deal that just started today, so we'll close that quickly and get on to some more.
Definitely, man. Appreciate it. Thanks so much.